Hello, Falova, and welcome into another episode of the 135 Footy Show, proudly part of the Wes Network. You can go check us out over on the website, wesnet.com, and also on all social media platforms. Welcome you in also tonight, helping me out. Bob, how are you?
Good, bro. Good to be on another potty talking about the league. There's quite a bit of it over the weekend, so good to jump on and have a chat.
Nice, Us. Yep, we're getting close to the start. So, Stace, welcome in, Us. Host of the Counter Rock. How you been, man?
Yeah, good, mate. Good to see another Warriors-centric post coming through. But yeah, glad to be on. Cheers, boys.
Nice. Yes, it is a bit of a all Warriors panel. The timing's not quite right with the Broncos representation, so that's fine. We'll go with us. Let's get straight into it. Also, let's go with our usual awards, All Eyez and the Kaea Kele. We'll start with the good stuff. Season's kicking off this Sunday, so let's get into our All Eyez award. I'll come to you first, Stace. Who you got in there, man?
Yeah, my All Eyez on me this week actually goes to a coach, and that's Ricky Stewart. So while everyone else was rolling the dice in these trial matches, he rested all his key guys. No unnecessary minutes, no headline injuries, no suspensions from over-enthusiastic tackles, which we'll probably touch on a bit later on as well. But I actually think that could prove to be a bit of a masterstroke as well. So we've already seen players pick up injuries in what are essentially these meaningless games. We've seen guys getting charged for head highs, and even Nathan Cleary found himself in a bit of strife. And just sit there thinking, for what? What are you getting all these guys in trouble for or injured for? These games don't give you any competition points. They don't define your season. And just thinking about the NRL, right? The NRL season is a grind. It's 27 rounds plus finals if you're good enough. So that's a war of attrition. So why risk your generals before round one even kicks off? So now, sure, I understand that, combinations matter, match fitness matters. But Ricky Stewart, he clearly backs his own systems, his depth, and his preparation over preseason optics. So sometimes, good leadership isn't about what you do. It's about what you refuse to risk. And if Canberra come out healthy and firing in round one, while others are reshuffling sort of injured stars, we might look back at this as elite long-term thinking. So Ricky Stewart for me.
Nice insight on that. All Eyez, a bit deep there, mate. Bobby, what you got for your All Eyez also?
Mine's completely not with the NRL this weekend. I give my All Eyes to Hull Kingston Rovers, bro. They took out the World Club Challenge, beating the Broncos. To be honest, I only watched highlights of this game, but I thought, far out, good on them for getting up and putting fire in the faces of the Southern Hemisphere comp winners. We've talked so many times in the past about how dominant we think the NRL is and how superior this competition is over all those Super League guys, because they kind of get the end of their legs NRL players or NRL players who are coming to looking for cushy retirements, and they all head over there and look at what's happened. Like, yeah, I know that it doesn't line up really with the NRL season, but Hull, they really took it to the Broncos, and their standoff Mikey Lewis, who was super average in the Ashes series that they had last year, like, he was a real standout, and he really just controlled that game from the kickoff and made the Broncos look super average in that first half for like 60 minutes actually of that whole game. And the Broncos sort of come back towards the end with like a flurry of tries in 5 minutes, but I think it was too late for them to come back. So my All Eyes this week goes to Hull Kingston Rovers, just not only for the victory over the Broncos, but it really does highlight that maybe that gap between the Super League and the NRL isn't as massive as what we thought it was, based on like the Ashes series last year, where Australia made the UK team Great Britain team look average. So Hull Kingston Rovers, All Eyes for me this week.
Nice call, Adams. Yeah, there was you're right. Like, they came in, the Broncos. It's not like they did what Ricky did, like you're saying. They went with a full squad, like they went stacked their team. So it's not like they were mucking around. So yeah, like you're saying, that gap is a lot closer than we kind of think when we compare the NRL and Super League. Nice all eyes, boys. My all eyes, I'm giving it to both of the Tigers wingers. Valentino Havana last week with that amazing flying try when he's like pretty much his whole body was outside of the field of play, and he's able to keep that ball in. And then this week, that young flying star on the other side, Makasini, that ran through several Panthers players. Yeah, those two look exciting. I don't know if they're going to be starting in the season normal. But yeah, those are my all eyes awards going out. I'll come to you, Bobby, for your Kaea Kele, man.
Well, if Hull's going to get all eyes for me, then on the flip side of that, the Broncos get Kaea Kele. And
I like it.
it's only because we believe so much in the NRL. We believe it's such a superior competition compared to what you see from those Northern Hemisphere teams. And the Broncos were just dominated from that kickoff. And I don't know if you can call it ring rust or, they looked rusty because they hadn't maybe still basking in the afterglow of their grand final victory. But like I told you, man, it's a new year, 2026. Like, you got to forget about all that stuff that you might have achieved last year. And I think they must have gone over there thinking they were just going to walk over Hull, if I'm being honest. A lot of their fans over here probably would have agreed and thought the same thing, based on the fact that the Broncos were so dominant last year in the NRL, based on the fact that the Aussies just made Great Britain look average. And then you come to this in the first 20 minutes, the Broncos just looked silly. And, I look at their team and it's like, their team list in the Broncos was the who's who of the Broncos grand final team. Then you look at the Hull Kingston Rovers team and it's like, who? Like, we don't even know these guys. We don't follow Super League. So it's like, and the names that I do recognize, like Peter Hiku, was the centre, Tyron May, Sawassel Sood, like Tom Mamune scoring that first try. And I'm like, hey, he was celebrating so hard because I'm sure he would have lost every game that he played against the Broncos when he was here in the NRL. And he was celebrating like it was like the best thing. And then you see guys like Reece Martin, Carl Lawton, who are over there as well. So, good on those ex-Hull boys, ex-NRL boys that are playing for Hull Kingston. It gives rugby league in general like a really good sort of feel-good story that it's not just a NRL dominant thing, that it might actually be a proper world competition with the top in the Northern Hemisphere being so strong as well, because they can lay claim to the fact that they beat the Broncos. And the Broncos had such a strong squad, so yeah, they get the Kaea Kele for me because they went over there with lots of experience, a ton of Aussie players, a ton of Queensland rep guys and New South rep guys, and yeah, it was just a terrible performance. Unfortunately for young Binger, there was that one try where he jumped up and he just sort of just bounced off him, and I was like, oh. Unfortunately, I've seen that quite a bit from young Binger last year, where he sort of jumps up and then the ball ricochets off his chest or off his shoulder or something, and I was like, oh, need to do some more high ball drills, bro. I mean, he can score amazing tries, like it showed in that same game where he just broke someone's ankles and took off and scored a really good try down the side. But yeah, he does have those deficiencies in his game, which I'm sure he'll be working on to get better once the season starts. But for me this week, Kaea Kele goes to the Broncos.
Nice, and Madge said it after the game. Like, it's no surprise. Like, that was exactly their season last year as well. Like, just letting these games get away from them, and then just sparks of brilliance pulling it back for them at the end, and they almost did it again. But like you said, it's a new season, and like teams are gonna know that, so they need to fix their starts, because I think teams will be prepared for the back end Broncos now. So something to look to. Stace, your Kaea Kele, right?
For my guy Kele, I've gone for something a bit different again. But mine goes to the Witzer Cup, which is the cup you win for that preseason challenge that we've just been watching. So I understand what the NRL is trying to do. They want to create interest around these trial games. They want fans engaged earlier. They want content, narratives, something to talk about before round one. But if we're being honest, most clubs clearly they just don't care about it. So star players are being rested, rotations are experimental, coaches are really just testing their depth and not really chasing the Witzer Cup silverware. As you can expect. So when the teams don't really buy in, the fans don't really either. So you can't manufacture the meaning behind it. It has to feel real, and that's sort of why they probably haven't got the cut through that they've hoped for in this preseason challenge. If I look at some other sports, they've tried some different models. So the NFL treats preseason purely as evaluation. If you look at, say, soccer, they lean into global exhibition tours for revenue rather than these competitions and that sort of stuff. So, some other competitions, they might run like a short knockout format with proper full strength squads. But, that only works if there's genuine incentive there. So maybe instead of a trophy, the NRL should maybe look at leaning into development, make it more of a development competition and just showcase maybe some of the juniors throughout the rounds or tie it through to the pathway systems. Or maybe even just scrap the illusion altogether and accept trials for what they are. It's all about preparation. It's not about performance at this stage. Because right now, it feels like nobody actually is trying to win this Witzer Cup. And, in rugby league, if the players don't care, the fans don't either. So get rid of that Witzer Cup, man.
Nice. Well, that's an interesting call on the Kaea. Like, I didn't mind it. Like, at least there was some league to watch. But you're right. Like, a lot of young talent. Like, it pretty much is, like you're saying, a lot of the up-and-coming development. But maybe that's the way they stage it. I don't know. Like, the Nines. Bob, your thoughts? Like, what they could replace it with? Does the Nines become a concept they bring back at the beginning?
I enjoyed the Nines, so I wouldn't mind it coming back because it was a different format. You actually, you didn't watch the Nines because your team. I guess you watched the Nines because the chance of your team winning the whole thing is the same as everyone else's.
This is my Nines team. This is my Nines team. It's different from my.
But it also gave you a chance to see what you really get to see in a short format of the game and less players on the field. You get to see the speedsters go against each other. And, that's always been like sevens in rugby union. That's always been the coolest thing when you see the fast guys trying to outpace each other. And that's what I really enjoyed about the Nines. Like the Nines introduced Semi Radradra to everyone when that format was still going, and he was the man. And I think they need to do something different. I agree, because having these full contact games, like coaches are pretty loath to put their players through the ringer for it, because you can get freaking injuries, just like how some guys are already out for like 6 or 7 weeks after this first couple of rounds of this preseason format. So, coaches don't want stuff like that happening. They don't want their star players going out there, and players will just go out and give it their all. Like that's what they're kind of paid to do, and they just love playing footy. But to lose a really key player in what your team's plans are early on in the season, it's pretty high risk. And in a shorter format, in a format like Nines, there's less chance of that happening. There's every reason for a coach to not play their players, their main stars in these preseason formats. So I wouldn't mind them going back to the Nines, to be honest.
Nice chat, guys. Nice spotting. Stace, my Kaea Kele also doesn't come on field. Well, actually, it is part of on field, but it goes to the judiciary. That Nathan Cleary, like that's clear shoulder contact to the head. On that same kid, Makasini. Kudos to the kid. He jumped straight back up. And so I think that's probably something that they take into account, the whole impact to the player. But I'm surprised he got sin bin. Like you see other players where they don't pull up the incident, then the player gets pulled off for an HIA. I think they did that to Leitao or Jacob Leben. So it's those kind of annoying ones where like the player's obviously impacted enough to get an HIA, yet the player doesn't get sin bin. But yeah, so he got enough to be sin bin, and it was a clear shoulder direct contact, and challenged the 2 weeks they were going to give him, and ended up getting an $1,800 fine. So that's my Kaea Kele to the judiciary, especially for Nathan Cleary. But maybe it's a good thing. Maybe that's the precedent, because I don't know what that means for anyone else going for the rest of the actual season now. Shoulder contact on here. Like, if the player bounces back up, am I automatically sweet to go judiciary with my dad and get off? I don't know. Your guys' thoughts on that? I don't know if you guys saw the incident. Just a bit, yeah.
Well, I spoke last week about, or last time I was on, about, you know, the comparison between Super Rugby and the NRL, and how the NRL would do everything in their power to make sure that their marquee players play in round one, because that's really important. Whereas Super Rugby sort of doesn't really care. They care about what suits the All Blacks better. And that was sort of my gripe last week. So it feels like even if Cleary's guilty, he was going to get off for round one because they need their marquee guys.
Yeah, all eyes on the game, yeah.
Yeah, so it feels like maybe it is special treatment for a guy like Cleary who's got, you know, he's the guy that he attracts eyeballs to the TVs and all the rest of it. So it did feel a bit like, you know, we're going to get you off because we need you in round one to keep the machine of the NRL running and all the bums on seats and everything. So,
Bobby, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, it sets a really crap precedent, to be honest. And it's probably not the first time that the NRL have done this pre-season or before the season's kicked off proper. I mean, you're going to see countless shoulders to head this year, I guarantee, and people are going to get sin binned or sent off for it, and they won't get the same treatment that Cleary's just received. So, you know, that's going to be shit. But hopefully, every player that sees what's happened is going to cite that case now and be like, oh, well, what's the difference between what I did and what Cleary did, and where's my fine, not $80? Like, if you're in the same sort of boat, like in terms of how many times you've been suspended or yellow cards or red cards or whatever, those carryover things that they do. If you're in a similar boat as Cleary, then you should also get an $1,800 fine this year. And there should be no questions asked about it, unless you're someone who's like a Jared Warrior-Hargreaves who's always at the judiciary. Then, you know, that carries a different weighting. Like, yeah, that's like instant 3 weeks for a guy, or 4 weeks for a guy like Jared, who's, you know, his uncles and aunties are on the judiciary. Like, that's how often he sees them. They're like an extended family. So, you know, unless you're like a Jared Warrior-Hargreaves, I think if you're similar sort of circumstances as Cleary, then $1,800 fine should be across the board for everyone in that circumstance.
Yes, we'll see throughout the season. It'll be interesting to see how many we remember to kind of relate back to this case. All right, let's get into some other news. Iongi, the young kid from the Eels and the backs, come out with some pics. Look like a cigarette, probably a spliff in his mouth. Also a grinder seen on the table in front of him. So I don't know. People have talked about maybe he's on holiday overseas. So yeah, it's legal in other countries, so maybe not an issue there. I don't know. Just the idea that they are role models, as much as people try to say they're not. But also, it is illegal in the NRL, so it may impact his chance to play in round one. Your guys' thoughts? Big issue, Bobby?
It always feels like it's this time of the year where we're always talking about something that's related to rugby league players, but not related to rugby league. Like, it's a Ezra Mam thing, or it's a Reece Walsh thing, or it's the size of dinner plates. Those boys from the Roosters.
That's right.
What's his name? Latrell Mitchell at that random ass party with whoever that was, with the white powder, Brandon Smith. There's all sorts of shit that has happened off the field incidents. Yeah, man, I understand that, but it just feels like every time the NRL season is about to kick off proper, there's some really shit news that drops. And you know what the common thread has been about all of those stories that I just named before? Is they're all brown boys, man. Like they're
exactly. Sure, man.
The Brown brothers.
Let's go back to Tokani.
Hard out. What happened to all the dumb white boys that out there that used to do stupid shit? It's like they learned from that Todd Carney incident, and there's been no more like any of those Balangi brothers doing any of the stupid shit. It's now all the Island boys, the Maoli boys, the flipping indigenous Australian guys, and I think I spoke about it when Latrell was getting his when he had his crappy story break the news, where we talked about how Latrell really, he's a role model. And I know Simon would be like, yeah, these guys are league players. They shouldn't be role models. He's a role model for all those young kids that play rugby league out in the sticks that look like him.
Yeah.
Of course, they're going to be role models. Yes, they're rugby league players, but man, those poor ass kids are going to look up to the Latrell Mitchells of the world, these Ezra Mams that have gotten the hell out of wherever it is, that country bumpkin sticks towns that they've come from. And they've made it into the NRL, and they're now, getting paid to play rugby league. All of these kids look up to these guys for that very reason. And so, yeah, for you and me, they're not role models, but for those young kids, man, over there who see these guys that look like them, they're role models. But it's super stupid. Now this Iongi stuff happening, it's like, man, I understand that you're not in season, you might be in your own time, you might even be at home, but just like with that Latrell stuff and that Brandon Smith stuff, it's like, who are these friends of yours? Who are these people that you keep company with that are taking these photos?
These guys sharing
that are
these photos,
selling them off,
100%.
or giving them to like the media for like, oh, how much you got me? Yeah, hold on. Sully, this guy's offering me 5,000. How much can you give it to me for? 10,000. Sully, this guy just said 15,000. What can you give me? It's like, who are your friends, man? And it's like Latrell's one where he thought he was at a safe space with all of his mates. Yeah, and then someone takes a sneaky ass photo. It's like, those guys are not your fucking friends, man. And we know this shit's going on. We know this recreational stuff happens with these players. They're just, they're young and they're adults now, though. They get to do whatever the heck they want. But it's the company they keep. And if they're doing this stuff in front of, I don't know, fair weather friends or friends that they've only sort of picked up since they've become like rich and famous league players, if these are not your schoolboys, your boys you've been mates with for at least... Yeah, hard out, like 10, 15, 20 years. Then, 10 years at least with some of these young fellas. They're not your day ones, man. Don't do that shit in front of them. Don't know where the hell this stuff's going. So when I see photos like that, these are people that know those players intimately. And so, man, you got to question who it is that they're hanging out with more than anything. Like, I'm not condoning what he did, obviously, but come on, the man thinks he's in his own private time, and now he's got all of these photos just out across the media and shit, man. And even if it was a joke, it's no joke if it's going to impact on his livelihood. Yeah, man. On stupid shit that will probably get him, I don't know, massive fines or whatever. And I'd really question who it is that they're hanging out with. So that's my take on this whole Iongi thing.
Yeah. Stace, your thoughts? Like, you always hide your grinder, make sure that never happens. But your thoughts on what's happening to
keep your grinder in a safe spot. That's my recommendation for young Iongi there. But I think, Bob, you've hit the nail on the head there. So I sort of wasn't even aware of this news. I just stumbled across it just before the pod. But I mean, I haven't got much to add. But just thinking about this Isaiah Iongi situation, it's sort of one of these sort of modern NRL moments where social media becomes the headline before the full story is clear. So these photos surface, speculation starts running wild in the comment section and all the rest of it, and suddenly the club and the integrity unit are involved. So I just sort of understand why, because first things first, perception matters. So whether something is confirmed or not, players today are under this constant public scrutiny. So the Parramatta Eels, they have to respond quickly, and that just makes that's just the environment that we're in now. So the NRL Integrity Unit exists for exactly these situations, to investigate and protect the game's image, and to make sure those due processes happen. But there is sort of a bigger conversation, because young players are, they're navigating the fame, the pressure, the scrutiny at a level that we've never seen before. So just thinking back to when we were young and players were playing at that level back in our day, none of these things existed. There's this additional level. It's not just about what you do. It's about what gets filmed now, what gets posted, what gets shared, which is what Bob's touching on earlier. And that's a reality, every club has to educate their players about. So I guess we don't want to jump to conclusions because we don't have the evidence yet, but you want to let the process play out a bit. But it's just a reminder that, professionalism, it's not just about the 80 minutes on the field anymore. It's almost 24/7 now. This is their whole life now. So, yeah.
Let's see how it plays out for the young kid. And I agree. Like, I think that's why it's good we'd have that integrity unit, because it has processes, like you're saying, like the social media world now. The photos or whatever that gets spread, you're lamb to the slaughter just amongst those dogs. They just get at you on social media. So at least they have some processes to actually, go do the digging and make sure they've got all the facts. So at least there's processes there for Iongi. A topic that's near and dear to us. We were laughing a few weeks ago at the Broncos losing Payne Haas. And yes, a lot of egg on our faces now as the news comes out on compassionate grounds. Mitch Barnett, for his family reasons, his son, some struggles there. The family looking to see if they can get him closer to home. Before we look to, where he might land, just your thoughts on the impact it has for the Warriors season. Like, does it strengthen us? Does it look like this has to be the year kind of thing? I'll come to you first, Stace, for your reaction to the news.
Yeah, I was a bit gutted. I mean, you think him
after
being
all
granted...
of your laughing at Penis.
See, don't tease people like that. It comes back to bite you in the backside again. But yeah, I remember being gutted. He's probably one of my favourite Warriors at the moment. So him being granted an early release, that's quite significant. Not just because of the player he is, but what he represents to us, to the Warriors pack. So he brought that edge. He's got the aggression, the experience. He's the type of forward who sets the standards, both on the defensive side of the game. He doesn't take that backward step either. So from a footy perspective, that's a huge loss. But, when a release is granted for personal reasons, and it does sort of remind you that it goes beyond football. The Warriors have always spoken about being a family-first club, and sometimes the leadership of that is supporting a player's life decisions, even if it hurts you, which it does. So I think from a roster perspective, I'm going to be a glass half full guy. This does open up some opportunities. We've got some good young middles coming through the grades there who could potentially get some game time in the future. I'll go with that narrative. Maybe shifting the rotation balance a little bit. But it also puts a bit of pressure on some of the senior guys as well to step up and fill that leadership void, because he's the captain. I watched this documentary in the preseason. He was the dominant voice throughout. He was telling everyone what to do and where to go and all the rest of it. So we talked about this the last time we were on about the dual captaincy. Yeah. He really does feel like Captain 1A, while James Fisher-Harris is sort of like the reserve captain. So that's, from that leadership side, that's a huge loss. But, the Warriors, we've shown resilience before. We've lost, you think Reece Walsh left for compassionate reasons, and Anfanua Blake, Dylan Brown, Marcelo Montoya. Yeah, so, I mean, these are flipping guns, elite level players. And the Warriors have been able to bounce back and be okay. So even though this is a huge loss, I think this is going to galvanize the group. And I think we'll find that out sort of early on in the season. Right. So I'll go the glass half full route at this stage.
Bobby, your reaction to Mitchie leaving Barney heading off?
Well, that positive spin that I tried to talk about when Payne Haas was leaving the Broncos, talking about Willison coming up, and Bentancur and Oblix and all of that, having to step up this year because next year Payne's not going to be there. That was all talk, man. That was all talk. I was just trying to balance your views. Just trying to keep it positive for those Broncos fans. Now that it's happened to us, it's like, man, I don't know if I can spare those same thoughts for us Warriors fans. This is a fucking tragedy, man. This is tragic. And because I had that thought about the dual captaincy where I thought, nah, man, Mitch is number one and Fish just needs to focus on busting asses out there. But it looks like that won't be the case. Like, we talked about this before we came on, tons about how, I don't even know about this year because, being released on compassionate grounds where it's you've got a sick child, and apparently his family's already like flown over to Aussie because they needed medical care in Australia. I think the bill would have just been humongous here in New Zealand, so they had to go over where Australian citizenship and the healthcare system will look after them for free or a lot cheaper than what it would have been here. So he's going to have, and I don't know how resilient Mitch Barnett's going to be. Yes, I'm the captain. I need to focus on my NRL. But like Stace alluded to, man, there's a lot going on, a lot more going on in players' lives than just league. Like, these are family men. These are guys who's now half his mind's going to be wondering how his child is over in Australia, and I don't know if he's going to be back and forth. Like, shit, I probably would be if I had the means to fly over back and forth, and then that throws into the question like, fuck, how's he going to manage that with trying to be the captain at the Warriors too? This is where the rest of those boys in the club will really need to sort of get around Mitch and just help support him through it, like not just from a league perspective as his teammates, but probably more as his friends. And they're like a family there at the Warriors. It doesn't matter how long or short your tenure's been at that club. Like, you really see that camaraderie amongst the boys, and it's not just like an island thing where the island boys are tight. Like, they get super tight with all the random Balangis that have made it into the team. Look at Steve Price, like, he's case in point. Him and his brother-in-law, what was the Cowboy? Brett Tate. Like, when they came, and look at how we embraced guys like James Maloney and flipping, like, guys that had cult followings. Like, who was that first guy that was like a real Campion? Kevin Campion. Like,
Kevin
Michael
Campion.
Luck, like, flipping heck, Mannering, like the Balangi boys that we've had over the years at the Warriors, some of them have been real guns, and they've become real standout players that Warriors fans really have fond memories of. And when you think of them, it's like, man, those guys, they gave their all for the club in the time that they were here with us. And even guys that might not have sort of lived up to their potential and things because maybe they were a little bit older, but man, those guys still came with their busted knees or their old injuries and still gave it their all. So, yeah, man, it's a massive loss for the club, leadership wise. Like, that's just going to be a massive void to fill, and I honestly don't see anyone in the current playing group that has that same level of leadership as Mitch Barnett. Yes, Fish has the same level in terms of how he plays the game, but just, man, I see Fish as more like a Payne Haas type player where he he leads by example. He doesn't really sort of do
just
much
plays,
talking and that's where Mitch sort of comes in. He's got a real sort of, I guess, a real rugby league IQ when it comes to, talking with the ref or seeing how a game's going. And, those are the types of players that you really miss when they leave your team. And so it's going to be a massive loss for the Warriors when it happens.
Yeah, interesting you guys touch on the captaincy. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, and I think it takes nothing away from Mitchie, but like there's a lot of responsibilities as captain you do off field, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe take that off him with everything else happening, like you're saying, with the personal everything happening in that space, whether he needs the extra time, because there's a lot of off field commitments as the captain. I see they've dropped captains from press conference. So at least that's one commitment that the captains don't need to turn up to anymore. So that'll be coaches only. I'll stay with you, Bob. Just your thoughts where you think Mitch ends up landing. I'll be horrified if he goes Broncos. Like, the whole point is that it's so far from here back to Newcastle. Now he still has to fly another hour and a half, whatever it is, from Broncos, So I'm like, come on, man.
Man, as happy as I was to see Payne Haas leave the Broncos, I will be heartbroken, equally as heartbroken, if Mitch Barnett goes off to the Broncos, because I know that they would have gained flipping probably, he doesn't have the Payne Haas numbers in terms of meters and all that sort of stuff, but impact, man, Mitch Barnett has that in spades, and he's also an on-field leader, not just with how he plays, but just, like I said, his IQ. And man, it's like they're just replacing the New South Wales prop with the other New South Wales prop.
Exactly.
And it's like, man, hell no. I want the Broncos to suffer. I want them to I'm going to keep it real, man. I want them to not get a like, and might even be a little bit better than Payne Haas. Just in terms of leadership. Like, you won't get these Payne Haas numbers, but man, leadership is everything in a team, and if you can't,
especially around those young guys like Willison, All Blacks, man.
And with Reynolds retiring as well, there'll be a leadership void there.
They got a massive leadership vacuum once 2027 comes around. Like, Payne Haas gone, it'll be Kerrigan, but it's like, come on, man. He's not that guy. Like, he's another sort of quiet, just try to, watch me carry the ball up guy. But I don't know. Like, all signs sort of point towards the Broncos, but I'm pretty sure he's a Sydney-based guy. So I don't know if you want to. Oh yeah. So I don't know. Will he go back to Newcastle? I don't know.
Well, they lost Leo Thompson. I don't know who their forwards are at the moment.
Trey Mooney they got, but he's inexperienced.
Yeah, he's young. Yeah. Your thoughts, Stace? Where would you? Yeah, I think we'll all be horrified if he ends at the Bronx.
100% echo that thought. But you think that they lose Payne Haas, they need a prop, they've got heaps of money in the salary cap, it sort of makes sense. But I would be devastated if that happened too. I'm hoping he goes to the Knights, because if he says he's going for family reasons, I think he's from that area, like you say, Tana. I'm sort of hoping that's what happens, because then...
Play us, man. Don't play us.
They say family reasons, and then you go to the Bronx and get a premiership.
As a friend of our podcast, Mitch Barnett, can you please just go to Newcastle?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of speculation. Like, you think once he put his name out there, the amount of people that need elite props, like props are $1 million guys now. Payne Haas and Tino and these guys are commanding, Adam Fanor-Blake are commanding like ridiculous money now, and he's in that elite conversation. So if he puts himself in the open market, there are more clubs that need, leaders and middle forwards and guns to set that platform than there are, actual middle forwards that are good enough to do that role. So I think there will be a lot of suitors for him. I hope it's Newcastle, because that would fit in better with the family reasons why he's leaving. You know, you don't say you go for family reasons, you go to Brisbane when your family's at Newcastle. So I'm thinking the Knights, I think just from the Warriors side, I'm sort of thinking about the internal sort of ripple effects, because I think of someone like, say, Murata Nukore. So there were sort of whispers that he could have been on the way out. But, just things like cap pressure, what's his role now? There's a bit of uncertainty around his role. I don't think he's a starter anymore. He might be a sort of a bench guy. And how does he fit within that rotation? But now, suddenly his value might shift a little bit. So he's quite versatile. He can play edge, middle. He's quite aggressive as well. He knows the Warriors system. So if Barnett leaves, I don't know if the Warriors can afford to lose both of those guys. So you can't just replace that experience and physicality overnight. So Barnett's sort of unexpected movement, that might actually lock New Corday in a bit more. So, and just, the pressure on some of those younger guys as well. So, when we talk about the Warriors, we've built our identity recently, or under Andrew Webster. It's been built on resilience and effort. So,
I read
going back
and
to
that's
the
interesting.
I read that the Warriors, wherever Barnett lands, they're going to be looking for a compensation or a like-for-like trade, or
Which
Payne's
kind
already
of
gone,
makes
so
sense,
just say, hey, Selfs, you go to Payne, just say hi to Selfs and carry on to New Zealand.
So we wish Mitch the best. Like I think, like you said, Stace, that's the Warriors' way. Like it's a family-oriented place, and that's where they try and make them welcome. And for family reasons they need to go, they never hold them back. So proud of the Warriors for doing that. Let's quickly get into the Vegas couple of games there. Firstly, your guys' thoughts on Vegas? You guys excited? Especially with these four teams going across. Stace, your thoughts on these matchups?
I think so. Just with the season starting, you're definitely excited about it. So just good to see the teams that are involved in it. I think that there's some good. There's at least one decent rivalry there. So I think that there's some clever matchups there from the NRL's perspective in terms of building the rivalry and just expanding on the game. I think that NRL and Vegas has become a real sort of calendar event, and people are really trying to go over there. So it's not just a game anymore. It's a real statement from the NRL. And I like I talked about this last time, but taking the NRL to, I think, Allegiant Stadium, it's called, over there in the US, it just carries on their ideas of global ambition. And they're really trying to, position rugby league as this export product. And it really turns it into a really elite event. So, and also just from a football perspective, round one's quite predictable. We're seeing new combinations. There's a lot of off-season hype about some of these teams and how they can move and improve from last year. So all those narratives and all the rest of it are interesting. But the Vegas factor, that adds another layer. The travel, the time zone, the distractions as well. That's what I'm really interested to see with this Vegas thing. Which team adapts quickest? Because we've seen teams go over there in the past and then they've struggled to sort of get their season back on track. So I remember the Broncos did that. You think about Penrith. Was it last year that they were over there? They beat the Sharks, and then they were poor, and then just saved their season at the end. So, I think I'm really interested to see those other side of it, how the Vegas side affects these teams. When you think about the American market, they've always tried to get this American market on board, but these high quality games, you think about the intensity, the footy. I think that there's a possibility that they can get some more US fans as well. So definitely looking forward to the Vegas games.
Nice. You mentioned something important there, like just with the Vegas stuff. We didn't really touch on the Origin eligibility, but it is a big point. Like you're talking about, like a product that we can export. Like we had, they confirm Origin's going to have a game here in New Zealand, and our Prime Minister announced it. And so people kind of overlooked it, but that's no small, like the fact that our Prime Minister, like New Zealand, like other than agriculture, what do we export? But if we align with NRL and their visions, one thing we do make in New Zealand is a lot of big islanders who can play rugby league.
Mm.
And so it's no surprise that the Prime Minister's even going, well, who else around New Zealand makes $1 million? Like, how many $1 million people are in New Zealand? Yet we put our kids into this system. All of a sudden, we've got people busting out, sending people from New Zealand to build $1 million. So, yeah, aligning with that enterprise makes sense. So it is a huge indicator, and I like that. That they're still pushing this product over in the States. Bobby, these 4 teams, your thoughts on the Vegas? You excited of the Vegas product itself?
Yeah, it's always difficult to judge who's playing when it's not really teams that you follow. But just looking at these 2 games, it's either going to be I'm picking the Bulldogs Dragons game to be all one-sided. So, like, honestly, I reckon it's going to be one-sided, and I reckon the Doggies are going to hammer the Dragons, and I hope they do. And then it's one of those highlight type matches, right, where the American public are going to see, like, holy shit, runaway tries or big hits or teams just getting pumped, and it's all like one-sided. And then you're going to get a Knights Cowboys game, which I think is going to be really even, and it'll probably be high scoring because I reckon defense is going to be thrown out the window, and they normally are in these Vegas games. Like for some reason, it's tri-fests. Like they have big scores, and it'll be interesting to see because you get the debut of Dylan Brown, in their halves combination of Fletcher Sharp going up against Eden and Clifford and the Cowboys. So having healthy Kellen Ponga, having a new halfback who's super exciting like Dylan Brown, if he brings his Kiwi form, like that'll be super amazing. And then you've got like exciting centers and Bradman Best and Gagai, and if you get those guys bringing their A game like that, Newcastle could easily upset the Cowboys if they're not careful. Like I don't think this is going to be the same Knights team from last year that struggled to score points. Like it looks like if they can stay healthy, if Dylan Brown can be the Kiwis Dylan Brown and not the Parramatta Dylan Brown, they've got points in them, and they've got very capable forward pack that can set a really good platform for him to do stuff. But it always looks good on paper at the start of the season, right? Until someone gets an injury or someone just plays like shit and then just carries on that shitty form. But I really want Lockie Galvin and the Doggies to do well. Like I'm like, okay, you've had your season in a bit now. There, it's like, no, you need to come right, bro. Like they invested a lot of money in getting you over there, and they gave you they praised you so hard. So and the reason why I'm picking the Doggies is because I just don't think Flanagan's very good. Like I still don't rate that guy. The coach just needs to bite the bullet and say that's enough. Like having glimpses of form every now and then, and then he's like, I know, right? And then he'll do like something amazing, or they'll win a game off like a chip kick that he did, but it's super inconsistent. Like one game he'll be looking the goods, and then the next 5 games you just can't make anything happen for the team. So yeah, Flanagan, I think if they continue to play him there in the halves, I just haven't seen his game step up anymore since he left the Roosters, to be honest. And yeah, his dad just keeping him in there, it's nepotism, bro. Like you said, let that shit go. They've got a good young half that played in that first round game. He was amazing. Yeah, that kid was the man. They need more of that young fellow in there, and not that guy. So yeah, I'm picking the Doggies to win that one, and because of those reasons, I think it's going to be a good advertisement for rugby league. You might get this one-sided game that's got all these highlights and stuff, and then you've got this other game where it's like super competitive, back and forth, which is what you want to see. And my caveat to both of those comments is, hey, come on, man, it's still first round. You never know. It's what I'm thinking. It's what it looks like on paper, but it could completely turn into trash and be completely opposite to what I said. That's why we're not really an analyst show. We're just commenting on the couch potato coaches that we are.
So I think you're right. Like a lot of these matchups, it is down on the paper. Like we're looking forward to a lot of these things. I see your Kamba Dylan Lucas is named on the bench, so he's starting at 11, so you might get some points out of him this week. But yeah, like you're saying, like as we go through these teams, we're really crystal balling. That's what I love about the competition. Like it's a whole new season, and teams from last year. Everything can change and new combinations, even just small tweaks. Even this, like from the preseason, the Knights, it looked like they'd settled on Sandon Smith, and now they've benched him and starting Dylan Brown at 7, which they hadn't tried. So, yeah, he went across on halfback money. So, I don't know if they've just backflipped. Like, you look at what they've done with DCE, they've kind of just said, like, what's his name?
Sam Walker.
Sam Walker's team, yeah. And just letting, DCE as a 7 kind of step into that 6 role. He's not going to be that dynamic kind of 6. So very different kind of 6 to Dylan Brown, but yet they've chucked in the 7. So I don't know if there's some games there. They might change like a audible at the last minute and chuck Sandon Smith back at 7 and move Fletcher somewhere. But yeah, be interesting to see Kalen. So we'll see how that plays out. But like you're saying, on paper, let's do some on paper stuff and break down our predicted top 8. Before the season even starts, let's get into it, boys. Let's look at your predicted top 8. Up to you if you want to put it in order, but I'll come to you first, Stace. What you got on your team list there for your top 8?
Yeah, always. You can be left with egg on your face with these top 8 predictions when you revisit them at the end. That's the beauty of the NRL, is how difficult it is. I think I'm relatively confident around my top 3, but it's from 4 to 8 where it gets interesting, as there's a number of evenly matched teams after that. So how it unfolds will be a good watch, and doing these these preseason top 8 predictions, it's quite fraught with danger. So we saw that last year. So you think of a team like the Raiders last year, a lot of them had a lot of experts, and I use that term loosely because I put myself in that category, had them pegged for the wooden spoon or close to it. They ended up winning the minor premiership. So there's always a bolter or two. But my top 8 is, so the top 3 I think is going to be the Panthers I've got first, then I've got the Roosters second, and the Broncos third. After that, it's a bit of a mismatch. I've got the Storm at 4th. I know they've lost a lot of good players, but if you look at historically, they've been able to always do better than people think. People have predicted the Storm's downfall for a number of years. I would have to actually see it before I believe it. So I've got the Storm in 4th. The Dolphins I've got as my big mover. I've got them in 5th. I thought their attack is amazing last year. You think about Katoa and all the people they've got guys like Averillo and Trey Fuller in there who are struggling to make the starting lineup. And if you think about, if they have better luck with injuries, they had massive forward injuries last year. I think they're going to be a big mover. The Bulldogs in 6th. Again, I like Serraldo as a coach. I've got question marks around, we sort of touched on it briefly, like Galvin, how he's going to go as a 7. And also Bailey Hayward. They got rid of Reed Marnie. And how that's going to go. I'm going to pick them in 6th because I know their defense is elite, and Cameron Serraldo is a great defensive coach. I've gone the Warriors at 7th. Now, just thinking we're a top 4 team for the majority of last season before injuries really crueled us towards the back end there. So I've got the Warriors making it. And in 8th, I've gone for the Rabbitohs. I think they've got a star-studded squad. They've got an elite coach. And hopefully if they get some better luck with injuries as well, I think they've got a top 8 roster there. So the guys I've got missing out, the Sharks, and I talked about them before, last year's minor premiers, the Raiders missing out. So anyone who follows me on the pod knows that I always write the Sharks off. That's been sort of to my detriment. They keep on proving me wrong. And to be honest, they probably will be in there if I'm being honest, but I'm a Warriors fan. I'm not taking my team out to put them in. I think the Raiders is the big team that have got falling from 1st to outside the 8.
Wow.
I just think their spine is a bit too young. They got rid of Fogarty. They've got Kaea Weeks, who's 23. Ethan Strange, who I think is 19. They've got another Ethan Sanders there, who's also a teenager at 7. And another young hooker there, whose name escapes me as well. But I just worry about that spine, even though they've got a gun forward pack. So that's my top 8.
Nice. Well, Bob, before I come to you, I'll go with mine because mine's a bit dire, so I don't want to. I'll get mine out of the way so people don't remember it, and I'll finish with you. So I'm backing us, like with all the news coming out of Mitch Barnett and all this other stuff. We've got a lot of retirement. I mean, Rogers off at the end of the season. We've got a lot of re-signings. Fortunately, we've got Taupiki picking up another 2 years with us, so he's extended. So that's exciting. But I've got the Warriors finishing minor prems, so I've got us. I'm backing us going minor prems, and we'll be finishing there in first at the end of the season normal. I've got the Bronx going back up there. They'll be there or thereabouts. I've got the Storm, so maybe those two, second and third. I've got the Finns, the movers and groovers, into fourth. So, like Stace, like I've seen what they've been doing over the last few seasons, and I've got them really bolting themselves up there. Pipping the Roosters, everyone's backing the Roosters this year. I think for a few seasons they've been there or thereabouts. So I've got them coming in at fifth. I've got the Eels moving into the top 8 this year. Yeah, so I've got Mitch Moses and that new combination. Just a few things they need to fix, but I think the Eels, especially more the coaching, like I trust in what they're trying to do there. I think the only thing for the Eels is that Lomax stuff, just that noise there. I think if they can kick that to touch, especially, and even the Iongi stuff, any of that off-field stuff is going to be to their detriment. So I think the quicker they can put that stuff to sleep, the better. I have pulled the Raiders back into my 8, so I've got them coming in at 7. I know they've lost a lot of that, Fogarty and a lot of those young halves, but like you pick Stace, like Ricky is a very smart coach. And so I trust Ricky can put things in place to pull his team through and still make that 8. And then I've also gone injuries pending, the Rabbits making the 8 as well. So that means the Panthers is my team to actually fall out of the 8. That is my bolt. That's my pick for this year. With all everything said and done, the Panthers fall out of the 8 for me. So that's why I went second, Bob. So you can finish us off and let everyone forget what I just said.
Jeepers, I think we'll just let that top 8 marinate for a second. with the listeners in disbelief. Some of your calls. Yeah, I ain't got any analysis. I just picked 8 teams that I want to see in the top 8. So I got the Warriors, obviously, the Broncos, Bulldogs, Panthers. For me, the Rabbitohs and the Dolphins are both coming in. Storm and Raiders. Dropping out for me from last year, the Sharks and Roosters. Why? I don't know. I just feel like like Stace was talking about with the Dolphins, man, like if those guys can stay healthy, they were like losing Herbie, they lost heaps of their strike, man, I feel. And so he was the number 1 center, but not only number 1 center, I thought that guy was the number 1 strike weapon in the whole NRL last year. And then when he kind of went out, like teams kind of didn't look to like at the Dolphins the same. They were like, oh yeah, nah, sweet, they've lost that strike power. But I reckon if Herbie comes back fitter, healthier than he was last year, Dolphins are definitely a chance to get in there. Rabbitohs, because they've made some good signings, man, and I reckon if Fafita can, if Wayne Bennett can get the best out of Fafita and he becomes like his Broncos form from a few years back when he was kicking ass for the Bronx and then at Queensland, like he just seemed to enjoy his footy when he was at the Broncos and when he was making his Queensland team. Playing at the Titans, he just looked bored and disinterested. So I'm like,
too much money.
I'm hoping that with him going to the Rabbitohs, there's a bit of competition for spots. They get their captain back. What's his name?
Cam
Murray. Yeah, Cam Murray. That was a massive loss for the Rabbitohs last year.
Yeah.
And they've got Payne Haas to look forward to next year. So I reckon it's the year for the Bunnies to come back. Just outside, though, I'm really wanting the West Tigers to do well. Not for any reason other than Benji's their coach, and I really want Benji to be successful as a coach. So,
chance.
yeah, man, and I want them to get up and at least be competitive around that 9th, 10th spot, be part of those teams that are just sort of fighting to make the 8. Because last year, man, there were so many teams right down to like 14th or something that were all contesting for that 8th spot. That's 2 or 3 rounds out from the end. So, yeah. Sorry, Rog. Sorry, Cam. I don't see Manly making the 8 this year. Yeah, and whoever's a Sharks and Roosters fan, those guys are falling out of the top 8 for me. So,
wow.
Just to recap, Broncos, Warriors, Bulldogs, Panthers, Rabbitohs, Dolphins, Storm, and the Raiders.
Okay, nice. Those are locked in. We'll see how they fare mid-season and by the end. While we've got time, let's quickly jump around and we'll come to you guys for a Dally M for the year. Who you think's going to stand out? Any bolters? Come to you first, Bobby.
I reckon if he can stay healthy, it might be Kale and Ponga again. I reckon. Only because Tedesco had such a kick-ass year last year. He gets dropped from Origin and all of a sudden he's playing some of his best club footy, and he really brought out his old eat-ass James Tedesco ways that you used to hate when he was playing at the Blues. So, yeah, I reckon Ponga can probably pull it out of the bag this year.
Nice. Stace, who are you looking at for your Dally M?
Yeah, I'm planting my flag early. I'm going to go for young Isaiah Katoa from the Dolphins.
Oosh, nice.
I know it's sort of easy to go off the usual names, like, you touched on Tedesco, Bob, think of Cleary and all these guys. But I'll tell you why I quite like Katoa this time. Do you think about last season when the Dolphins, when they had their key guys healthy, like you talked about a bit earlier, Bob, they were electric in attack. At one stage they were statistically, at least, had the best attacking output in the whole competition. And you just think who was pulling the strings? It was Katoa. So he's still young, but his game management, it's really matured quickly for someone of such a young age. His kicking game is elite. He's really good at controlling the tempo. I think we touched about on that last year, tons. How he's almost like, playing fast and playing slow and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is something you sort of see from a guy who's played 150 plus games. So I'm really impressed with his development. I like the way he plays. He plays really square. And just thinking about, more importantly, everything good in their attack, it flows through young Katoa there. So, we talked about it a little bit, but the Dolphins were smashed by injuries last year. If they can get some better luck this season and stay relatively healthy, I've got them pushing. I think we've all sort of got them close there or thereabouts, pushing into that top 8. And if they make that top 8, that means that Katoa has been the central figure sort of in all of that thing. So, you think about the Dally M Awards, it rewards influence and the influence you have over the results. So a lot of it goes to those spine players, halfbacks and fullbacks and all that sort of stuff. So if he can keep stacking those strong performances and the Dolphins keep winning, those points can accumulate quite quickly. So I think we see a shifting of the guard a little bit, and, Katoa is no longer that young talent. He's the elite organizer. So I'm going to go young Katoa for the Dally M this year.
Oh, nice. That's a nice pick there. I'm following your lead, going outside of the usual. And it's off the back of one of the Vegas teams. So they've got a target on their back. Like Peyton is under the pump right now, but there's only a couple players that really make differences in that team. So I was struggling between, like you're saying, it comes to those spine guys. And I was going to go with Dearden, but I'm actually going to give it to Scotty Drinkwater. Like, I think he does so much in that team. And I think he can earn some points. And they're playing for their coach this year. Like, all the cleanouts last year with O'Brien at the Knights, with at the Eels as well, and then the Titans. I was surprised that Toddy Payton survived last year. So It's a big season for them, but I'm picking them to do a lot better, even though they didn't make my 8. I think Scotty Drinkwater, as an individual, picks up the Dally M points for this team, carrying them through a lot of games and making them pick to score those points. Let's quickly move on from that and go to your wooden spooners. Your predictions for the wooden spoons, guys. I'm going with the obvious. Like, everyone doesn't think that's going to happen, but I'm going to go with the Dragons. I'll come to you, Stace. Who's your wooden spooner for this year?
Yeah, I'm going to touch on something you talked about with the Dally M there. My wooden spoon, and I sort of don't say this lightly, I'm going to go for the Cowboys, eh?
Oosh.
Yeah, now I know that people are going to look at their roster and think, what the heck? But, talent-wise, that's not a wooden spoon roster. On paper, they're far better than a wooden spoon side. But footy, we've talked about this as well. Footy's not played on paper. It's played on discipline and application. So last year, they had one of the worst defensive records in the league. And they consistently tried to win games through all-out attack. Yeah, I'm trying to outscore them. These offloads, they try early shifts, this high-tempo footy. And it looks great when it works. You're thinking about the NRL, you can't just out-attack teams for 27 rounds and just negate your defense. You have to build pressure, you have to defend your try line, you have to win ugly sometimes. So for me, the issue isn't talent, it's just about their consistency. And I question their mindset in some ways. They, like you said, they try to win a game 36-30 as opposed to trying to grind out a 12-8 type win, And I just don't think that that's sustainable. And if they start the season slow again, pressure builds quite quickly. You talked about Todd Payton. I think he's going to be the first coach sacked as a result of how poor they are. So, no, it's not. It's just the reality of the NRL. It's not personal or anything. Expectations are quite high. So windows, I talked about this before, but the windows can close quite quickly. So I think if they leak points early and sit near the bottom, the board's going to act, and I think he's going to be the first coach sacked, and I'm picking him for the wooden spoon.
That's going to be a record. The first team to have their coach sacked and still have a Dally M player come out of their squad.
Yo. How much are the odds on that one?
Bobby, who's your wooden spooner, man?
I don't know, man. There's probably a few teams that their makeup has changed so much from last year that they're probably going to be there or thereabouts around the bottom. And, I've got Dragons there. I've got the Titans there. I might even have the Sea Eagles there. So, I just think that it was such a seismic shift having
DCE.
Lost DCE to the Roosters. And he was one of those, we've talked about talismanic players for different clubs before and other parties that we've discussed players. And he was Manly Sea Eagles, man, to the Oki, but now with him gone, it's like, well, he's going to steer that ship now. There's such big boots to fill. Actually, it sounds like I've just convinced myself that the Sea Eagles are the wooden spoon. So
I like it.
I'm going to pick the Sea Eagles. I was going to pick the Dragons just because I think, but they can sort of recover because of what I've seen with that young fella. If Flanagan gets hooked during the season or whatever, but the Sea Eagles, I don't know who have the Sea Eagles got, like
Tommy.
I don't know. They've got like some old guys. It just doesn't seem like they've transitioned out of those times when the land was flowing with milk and honey. It just they're kind of still resting on those laurels of the Turbo Boys, and it's like, well, the guys they're a bit more prone to injury now. They're not at the peak of their powers. I just can't see the Sea Eagles being very consistent and trying to keep up with teams that are going to obviously push for the 8, and I don't think the Seagulls are going to be one of them, and they're most likely going to be struggling to pull themselves out of those close games, whereas DCE would be able to get like a 40-20 or a field goal or something that would, upset the tempo of the game and try and bring it back into Manly's favour. But this year, I didn't see that happening for the Seagulls, so Seagulls for me, man.
You're going to get arrested, man.
Some of that
You're going to get a house visit. You're going to have a cop do a house visit to your house tomorrow, bro.
So he was just around the corner. They were just doing all this money-grabbing scheme where there were like 10 of them at the off-ramp, and then I drove past and he was in the line. I just beeped the horn at him. Beep! The cops turn around. I'm just laughing at him. Hello, Constantine. Shout out to Constantine.
That's a big call, man. But they kind of dropped off the radar. Like, it's hard, like that. They're one of those middle of the road teams that you kind of we naturally substitute our Warriors out to be. Well, we're gonna be above you. So that's a nice call out. Also, Manly. What a spooners. We'll see.
Like it.
I like it. Nice boys. Final words. We'll come to you, Stace. Anything to wrap us up?
Yeah, just thinking, we're heading into round 1. And what I talked about this before, but what I love the most about this time of year is just the possibility. Everyone's undefeated. I know the Manly boys are going to listen to this and walk at it thinking they're definitely top 8.
It's not even going to get cut. No one's even going to put this out. Kevin's like, delete.
Well, every fan, doesn't matter what team you're from, everyone has that hope. Every club believes that they've fixed whatever problems they had last season, and that that's what makes the NRL quite compelling. So it's the unpredictability of it all. Now, it's quite physical, but it exposes you for 27 rounds, which was talked about. So we've had a lot of bold calls tonight with the Dalian picks and the wooden spoon predictions, some other stuff, and some coaches that are under pressure. And some of this. When we did the review at the end of the season, some of this is going to age beautifully, and some of this is going to be Kaea. So I shouldn't come on these prediction shows anymore, but I think that's just the beauty of the game in the NRL. So I'm just really excited to see, what teams have actually evolved. Who's tied in their defense, who's matured in their game management, all that sort of stuff. Who's built that real resilience and improved on last year. So, all those highlight plays and the YouTube videos, those are all great. But you think about if you want to get to September footy and play in the finals, a lot of it's built on the systems you have, the discipline you have, the mentality you have. So, I'm just really curious to see who's changed and who's evolved, because I guarantee you every year there's a team that bolts out of nowhere and gets to the playoffs that no one predicted. So I'm just really interested to see who that is. So, and you look at our top 8 predictions, just that gap between the top 4 and the bottom 4, it's thinner than a lot of people think. So, yeah, I'm just glad that the footy's back, and now we get to see, who's real and who's been a pretender. So, yeah, excited.
Nice. Oh, I'm excited. That's a nice little pitch there, mate. Bobby, final words also?
Yeah, looking forward to the season proper kicking off. It's good that the league started back with all this preseason stuff, but it's just like, these are like entrees, man. You want to get to the main course. And so it's going to be starting in Vegas. So bring it on, man. There are going to be 2 teams that just won't have a prayer in Vegas, but the league has started. So, yeah, looking forward to the season, boys.
Nice. Thanks, boys. Thanks for jumping on. There's a nice kickoff to the season. Really looking forward to it as well. And thank you for those that are tuned in. If you've made it this far, please drop us a like and subscribe to our new home on YouTube. We previously were on Wes Net, but now we've got a new home in the Wes Sports. So if you can jump over there and give us a like and subscribe, it really helps the algorithm, whatever the algorithm is. But for today, thanks for listening, and we'll tune in next week. Thanks. Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Peace.